Welcome everyone to the Animal Reader. The Animal Reader is an animal news organization based in the Netherlands. Today we're going to talk about Panda LeLe, passed away 2 weeks ago, and Yaya, who's still in a zoo. They were both in Memphis Zoo, and we're going to talk about them with Tom Clemenson and Sarah Chen. They're from Panda Voices, which is an animal rights group, an international animal rights group. Welcome, Tom and Sarah. Tom, you're based in the United States, and Sarah, you're based in China. First of all, Tom, can you tell me, LeLe has passed away. Can you tell us what the status is and what you know about her death? His death.
Monitoring the panda cams is something we've done pretty much immediately since the start of our group. Sarah actually headed up that initiative. She began it. Some other supporters took to it as well. So it's done pretty regularly in the days leading up to LeLe's passing. Sarah, as well as some other supporters, noticed LeLe stumbling around, not eating, looking extremely distressed. He was walking up to visitors, shaking his head in circles. He makes these motions. He looks like he's roaring, but he's not. That's just a sign of like hunger and distress. And we saw a lot more of that in probably like the last week of his life. We tried to alert the zoo. We called them multiple times. We got the same runaround answers. Oh, the pandas are fine. We check on them regularly. The pandas are fine. We check on them regularly. Finally, on January 31st, we noticed him try to walk, and he basically just fell over. I believe some supporters noticed this more than once. January 31st, LeLe disappeared from the panda cams. They didn't announce his death until the 3rd. So they knew what happened. They hid it from the public. They gave a very a very careless answer of saying, oh, well, we believe he just passed in his sleep. Then CAZG, the Chinese Association of Zoos and Gardens, they finally managed to conduct an autopsy last week after LeLe passed away a few weeks. And they ruled it as a problem of heart disease, which sounds a little suspicious all over again because heart disease does not crop up overnight. It doesn't just appear. I mean, sure, maybe it could build up and worsen over the course of a few weeks, but in a geriatric animal, one that's supposed to be under veterinary check pretty constantly, I'd imagine professionals would catch on to this.
The Chinese government loans pandas to zoos all over the world, as that's been for the past 50 years. They've been doing that, and LeLe and Yaya were at Memphis Zoo for the past 20 years almost, and they were going to be sent back at the beginning of April. And what Tom was just saying, so the moment it was announced they were going to be sent back, like you've been following them for a while, like when did they start looking bad to you?
I think actually I started to focus on Yaya and LeLe in the end of 2020. And at that time, their conditions are already very bad. And when I searched the internet, search about the information about Yaya and LeLe, I found actually the concern already started as early as 2012. Some people, they visited Yaya and LeLe and found they are underweight and they look very sad. So they posted on the internet. But at that time, since Yaya and LeLe are not very famous pandas, so not many people follow up their conditions. And in 2019, the Memphis local media, they covered Yaya and LeLe and posted a photo of Yaya. In that photo, Yaya sat on the stone and raising her head up, and she's staring at the camera, and she just sitting there still. She looks very sad. So that photo makes me cry at that time. So I feel it seems Yaya is in a very bad condition, because I think most of the pandas in the world, they look very trumpy and their fur also looks very beautiful, but Yaya looks very different. And both Yaya and LeLe are underweight. So at that time, I started to follow their conditions. We did a lot of work to try to improve their conditions. We write 3 emails to the zoo. One was sent in 2021, and the other 2 letters were sent 2022. But these letters, we didn't hear the response from the zoo. And after In Defense of Animals joined our campaign, they also supported us a lot and bring a lot of attention. Unfortunately, it seems Memphis Zoo is always very stubborn to make a change. Although we express our willingness to do some donations to donate the toys or food, but Memphis Zoo rejected our requests. And we watch Yaya and LeLe on Panda Cam every day. They just showing the little interest in their food, and they always beg for food for quite a long time, and no people respond to them. Especially they have very serious stereotypical behaviors, showing their mental stress. So we think the condition is very bad. But regarding LeLe's death, it's even more sad for us to observe his sufferings through the Panda Cam. And LeLe's he started to show dangerous symptoms since the mid of January. And at that time, we found he behaves very differently from his normal conditions. Usually when he came to the day room, he will try to search the bamboo and he will eat if he finds the bamboo is palatable. But during those periods, we found LeLe, he eats very little and he showed signs of weakness and he slept a lot. And the most sad thing is that we found LeLe has no strength. Like previously, he always paced around and beg for food. He will even stand up and roar in anger to show his bad feeling. But at that time, he has no strength to roar in anger and beg for food like he usually did.
And
Yeah.
but if you've already noticed this in 2019, doesn't the Chinese government then ask the pandas to come back?
Yeah, actually, Panda Voices and a lot of Chinese fans, they tried a lot to inform the Chinese authorities about the Yaya and LeLe's poor conditions. Unfortunately, at first, when we make the call and write the email, they didn't give us any response. And I also called them many times. At that time, they think that Memphis Zoo is an AZA zoo, so they have a very good reputation. So they don't think they will treat pandas in a very bad way. Yeah.
And so Tom, like both of you, like Panda Voices you've been very also very accusing towards Memphis Zoo, right? Like you blame Memphis Zoo on the death of LeLe.
Yes, we definitely try to be careful what we say, because we do like to work based off of evidence. However, given the the documented history of overall neglect, and not just by way of nutrition, but by way of attention. Pandas can be very charismatic animals. If you look at pandas that have like dedicated nannies or a dedicated zookeeper, they're playful. They recognize their nannies. They react to them. Pandas have this natural charisma. And when you looked at Yaya and LeLe, you just saw their light was taken away, even while LeLe was still alive. And just watching the overall physical neglect, no one coming to check on them, no one coming to play with them, stimulate them, very little enrichment. It's hard for me to not blame the zoo for his death. There's an example of a panda in China he was found in the wild. he went through many hardships. Something happened to him where basically his mouth was severely injured. He was missing a lot of teeth by the time he was rescued. And what his zookeepers did was basically made like a chopped up salad of bamboo, fruits, other vegetables, whatever he would eat, but really chopped up finely so he could just get it into his mouth and eat it. Both Yaya and Lela, especially Lela, were documented as having bad teeth. You know, they had dental problems. So if you give them bamboo that's rock hard and old, you know, they don't even want it. They're forcing themselves to eat it, but now they can't because they can't even break it.
Memphis Zoo said it was they didn't, when they had a press conference when Lele passed away, they said there was nothing wrong with him, even though you've posted this today also, the footage of the last day he was seen on camera. Has Memphis Zoo, Sarah, responded to you at all in the past 3 years that you've been following them?
Actually, at first, they replied to me. At first, I contacted Matt Thompson. At that time, he's not the CEO of the zoo, but now he's the CEO. So at that time, when I contacted him through LinkedIn, he actually replied to me. And he told me that there's nothing to worry about. The pandas are watched by their keepers 24 hours a day. So they received the good care, the best care. At that time, I believed his sayings, but I start to watch on Panda Cam every day, and I found that's very different from what he described to me. So I reached out to him again, and I sent him the videos I made and those screenshots. I want to tell him that that's not good. You can't force the pandas to beg for food every day. They need the natural feeding behavior. They can't just pace around and beg for food every day, and the bamboo type might be not correct. You can do many things to make a change. Like Tom mentioned, you can make the bamboo leaves and make the bamboo salad for the pandas. But after that, he just blocked me, so he didn't reply to me anymore. So actually, we tried every way to contact the zoo and hope they can make a change. We tried many friendly ways, but they didn't respond to us. So in the end, we are all bring together and we formed Panda Voices to do something to raise concern for Yaya and Lele. We hope the public pressure can push the zoo to make a change.
And so what you want also now, because Yaya is still there, like you were very, the Panda Voices is very stressed about the fact that Lele has now passed away, but you instantly went, what's going to happen to Yaya?
So since Lala's passing, you know, awareness has increased greatly. And with more awareness, we get more participation. So a group of anonymous panda warriors, they took it upon themselves to book some digital billboard time in Times Square, New York. You know, they did this on their own accord, their own money. They didn't do it for credit. They just want to help bring more awareness to the cause. It was a really great moment to see the overall awareness, not just on the spot, like to see it in the city that I come from, you know, to see a cause that I'm trying to champion and to see it up on a big screen in Times Square was really, really mind blowing. And to see other people looking at it, you know, complete strangers were stopped and they were definitely taken in by it.
Chinese veterinarians came from China to check up on Lele. They said she had heart failure. Is the Chinese government, Sarah, I'm asking, I don't know if you can answer this, but is the Chinese government blaming Memphis Zoo for his death, or they haven't said anything about that?
I think they haven't said anything about that. Actually, we think that Memphis Zoo is responsible for Lele's death. And Lele's death is preventable. Many people write the email, ask them to check Lele and give him some medical checkup, but the zoo didn't do anything. So we think that Memphis Zoo, they should be responsible for Lele's death. But currently, the Chinese government haven't said anything about that.
And they haven't also decided to take Yaya back earlier. So that means that Yaya will still remain in the zoo where, according to you, Lele has passed away because of
Negligence.
negligence. Thank you. It's not my first language.
Me too.
Lele passed away because of negligence, and you are then, but the Chinese government, from what I understand from you, isn't backing this yet, or maybe might never. So that means that Yaya will remain in Memphis Zoo till the 7th of April with bamboo that is not always correct, and she doesn't look good. She doesn't look well neither.
Yes. Currently, we think that the Chinese officials hasn't make a decision about ask Yaya to return to China earlier than the contract, than the end of the contract. So Yaya may still have to stay in the zoo until April. Yes.
And what is, so this is, I think, the fight of almost any animal welfare group, animal rights group. So you see this happening in front of you. You see this on cameras because people can see, go to Memphis Zoo, go on the website, and you can see the panda camera. You mentioned she is very sick. We see this and this. But at the moment that the Chinese government is also, veterinarians were there. If they don't feel we should take Yaya away now, and Memphis Zoo isn't cooperating, what do you focus on then now? What are your next steps? It must be extremely frustrating, but like I said, it's the fight every animal welfare group has if you're not backed by governments and the zoo itself.
It's definitely tricky. This case in particular, because there are lots of levels of bureaucratic interference. So China is state-run. China is a communist country. America isn't. The pandas initially, going back to the 50s, 60s, it was meant as like an act of diplomacy between China and the rest of the world. The problem with diplomacy is now everyone's walking on a tightrope. You don't want to offend people. You don't want to say the wrong thing. If you're mainly the employee, if you're merely the employee in this organization and it's on you to say, well, oh, these pandas don't look well, but you don't want to lose your job, you're going to try and pass the buck and say, well, they seem okay, or maybe this condition exists, but it's not as bad. And you write it up a certain way. You say it a certain way. So now the responsibility is cast off of you. And hopefully it goes to somebody else. But it never does because everyone is playing the same game. And it's the same thing on this side. Nobody wants to look bad in this case. So no one's going to want to take responsibility. No one's going to admit to any wrongdoing. They're going to say, like when we first brought this up, that both pandas look ill, we were told, oh, Yaya's condition is hereditary. Her mother has this. Well, if her mother had this, why couldn't you begin preventative measures prior to? You should have some expertise in this matter already. It also came out that the zoo, in their efforts to breed both pandas, Yaya had 4 miscarriages. As anyone would know, a miscarriage will take a toll on the body, human, panda, otherwise. So you have 4 of them. And this is no longer just a physical toll, but a mental toll, because animals have that instinct to be a mother as well. It's like they admit just enough to get the heat off of them, but they don't want to take all of the responsibility. We have people on both sides playing the same game, and it's really just leading to more problems. It's not leading to better conditions for any animal. It's a law in the books. You can't be cruel to animals. In America, we locked up a famous football quarterback for killing and abusing dogs. He got 4 years in prison. Now we've been documenting animal neglect on a panda cam, but we can't get anyone to pay attention. So it's also a battle of making people care.
Yeah. But you've done. I have to say, I've been following you for a long time, and you've been persistent, and you are creating awareness for these pandas. And I think with Lele's death, that shocked a lot of people. People were more shocked than, and you got a lot of support also.
Yes, we think that actually LeLe's death it exposed the zoo's failure. LeLe sacrificed himself, but he showed that Memphis Zoo didn't offer the pandas a good care, and also even they are very indifferent to the senior animals' health. So in the future, we will definitely seek justice for LeLe. We will post the recordings we have, the evidence we have, and also the people's their words to show people the zoo failed the pandas. And I think Memphis Zoo should learn a lesson from this, because Yaya and LeLe actually they are almost the youngest panda among the 6 adult pandas in the US. The other 4 pandas in the National Zoo and Atlanta Zoo, they are older than Yaya and LeLe. But now LeLe becomes the first male panda died in the US. So we think the zoo should think about this. They can't just explain that LeLe is an old panda, every panda will die, so we should look at the positive perspective. That's not true. Actually, the pandas in captivity, they can live up to 30 years old. Even and LeLe's mom, his mom, Xing is the longest living panda in the world. He lived 38 years. She lived 38 years. So actually, LeLe still very young. We feel very sad that we didn't save LeLe. But LeLe, he sacrificed himself, but he brings some home for Yaya. Now we found many people there, especially in China. Yaya, the topic related to Yaya has been trending for several days. So the Chinese people, they really concerned about Yaya. And now every day, the Chinese social media will do a live broadcast for Yaya. They will repost Memphis Zoo's Panda Cam.
And I'm going to ask you a very difficult question. You said that Yaya is sicker than LeLe.
Yes.
Aren't you scared she might not make it till the 7th of April?
At first, when we heard about LeLe's death, we do feel that will be a very difficult time for Yaya, and we really very worried about her. But now, since Memphis Zoo also feel the pressure, and actually we know some people live in the US, they heard about Yaya and LeLe's conditions, and they take the initiative to form a group, and they visited Yaya in turn. Like they will come to the zoo and just accompany with Yaya and take some videos and post it on social media. So we think that also helps a lot. Actually, we found recently, it seems the keepers, they respond to Yaya's food bagging faster than before, but we still found that Yaya still has some very long time food bagging. Like yesterday, we saw her beg for food for 30 minutes, but he didn't get anything. And she started to shake her head over and over. She looks very stressed. So, but with all these concerns, we think Yaya can make it because people are all watching on her. So the zoo may also feel the pressure and treat her better than before.
Yeah.
We hope,
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like the zoo, it would be, I think also for the zoo, it would be the worst thing to ever happen if they can't let that happen. It's also a horrible thought to think about it. And one last question. This is for both of you. If you've how to phrase this correctly. So we have reported whenever you have a press release or whenever we see something, we've reported on that. But we haven't followed, of course, LeLe as extensively as you have. But what was it like for you to the morning you found out she died? I'll ask you both this question. What does that do to you?
It's and it really sucks. It was really, really terrible. Especially being so close to the finish line. So, in December, we got the news that the contract was officially up. They're going to go home. That's victory, followed by a loss. And that loss, the loss has been realized. He's really dead. We haven't gotten Yaya back home. So our victory is still metaphorical. And it's very hard to sit with it was even harder knowing that, when he disappeared off those cams a few days before, this was the thought running through our heads. So to get, a fear, one of your worst fears possibly, realized immediately, it was nearly devastating. It was nearly devastating because, I've said this before, Yaya and Lala are our first case. Therefore, they're the godfather and godmother of Panda Voices. So that's what we lost.
Yes, and I heard LeLe's death on Friday, I remember, and during that weekend, I even can't watch the Panda Camp because when I watch LeLe's day room, I will remind of him and I will remember him. I feel very sad because we also regret that why we didn't take more actions to contact the zoo, because at that time we already found that he's not well, he's unwell, he's very sick because he eats very little. He just lie down on the ground for a few hours without eating anything. That's very dangerous symptoms, but at that time, I tried to call the zoo, but the zoo, when I mentioned the pandas, they just hang off the phone directly without saying a word. So I have no ways to reach out to them. And at that time, we don't have many people live near the zoo. It's also impossible to ask them just to go to the zoo and talk to the keepers. So we regretted that we didn't do more, but we don't know that's dangerous, that will cause LeLe's death. So we feel very sad, and at first I feel very hard to accept this because LeLe is a very good panda. He's very smart. When he do his food bagging, he's very smart. When he found the keeper pass him a bamboo and he looks is not very palatable, he will just stare at the camera and doesn't look at the keeper to show him that I don't like your bamboo. And she's very smart. She has a lot of funny behaviors and she always make people laugh. But we are very sad that he leave us so early. We want to bring him home and we want to see him eat the sugar cane and the bamboo shoots, but we don't have such a chance. So we hope people can remember LeLe and also remember that the disaster and the suffering the zoo bring to the pandas. LeLe should be a very happy panda because he has very good genes from his parents. His parents are also wild pandas, and it's a very perfect genes she got from his parents. But now he died so early. So we hope people can also learn from this, and we want to seek justice for LeLe, and the zoo should. We think Memphis Zoo own an apology for LeLe. They should apologize because even after LeLe's death in the media conference, they still try to explain and attribute LeLe's death to himself and say that he's not showing any sick symptoms, but that's not true. He's already very sick. They should help him, but they didn't. So we hope people can remember this panda and also try to work hard to protect them. When we see some bad things happen to the animals, they can't talk. They are voiceless, but we should speak up for them.
And you do that very well. I can understand what you say, that you feel like you should have done more, but you do all you can, right? You're based in China and you're trying to help this panda, and Tom, you're based in New York, and it's not like it's a long flight. So you do. I think everybody in your organization, they've done a lot. You've brought a lot of awareness. Even us in the Netherlands noticed it through social media about these pandas. So you're reaching a lot of people, and I hope for you that you're right, and that Memphis Zoo is, at least the world is watching, it almost feels like, so that Yaya will return home safely on the 7th of April. She'll return home, and then you'll have your part of your victory then, Tom.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Priya.